Life does not take light with anyone. You can try to dodge, you may complain, you may even revolt, but none of this changes the inevitable difficult times will come. The question is, will you be crushed by them or use them as fuel to strengthen yourself? The answer is in you. The ancient Stoics already knew that suffering is not the end, but the beginning. They understood that resilience is born of pain, that control comes from acceptance, and that true strength is not in avoiding challenges, but in facing them with their heads up. If you have already felt lost, if life looks too heavy, or if frustration has taken over, this guide is for you. Stoic philosophy is not about beautiful words, it's about action. It is about finding power within you, even when everything around falls. Here you will learn 9 lessons that have turned warriors, leaders, and wise over the centuries. Far from being abstract ideas, they are practical principles that you can apply now to become stronger, more serene, and, above all, unbreakable. Get ready. These lessons will challenge your beliefs and demand change. But if you really want to take over the reins of your life, this is the first step. Ready to find out how pain can be your best ally? Pain is a severe but essential teacher. Escaping her does not make us stronger, on the contrary, we weaken us. Think of a muscle that grows precisely because it has been subjected to effort and tension. The same goes for mind and spirit. If each discomfort were avoided, how to expect evolution? Reality is simple. The pain you face today can be the foundation of your strength tomorrow. The question is, will you allow yourself to learn or just run away? Accepting the pain does not mean liking it, but recognizing your role on your journey. Great personalities of the story, from emperors to athletes, understood that. Marco Aurelio ruled an empire dealing with war, plague, and betrayal. But instead of lamenting, he used every blow of life to sharpen his wisdom. Similarly, a fighter trains to resist impacts because he knows that avoiding the fight will not make him champion. You can apply this logic to your own life. When the pain beats, ask yourself, what can I learn from it? Instead of, why is this happening to me? But beware, there is a difference between accepting pain and clinging to suffering. Stoicism does not teach passive resignation, but active growth. If something hurts, it's a sign that there is a lesson there. You can hide, or you can prepare to face front. Pain can be an obstacle or a trampoline. The choice is yours. Reality is tough but undeniable. You can't control everything that happens to you, but you can control how it reacts. Many spend energy trying to change the uncontrollable, as if the universe obeyed their wills. But the true power is to accept the facts and focus on what is really within your reach. Did you rain on your event? Will complaining change the mood? Of course, but adapting, finding alternatives, and moving on is fully within your control. Stoics called this the dichotomy of control, the difference between what we can and what we cannot change. Marco Aurelio, even though he was an emperor, could not prevent wars or betrayals, but could decide how he would rule in the face of chaos. Epictetus, a slave who became one of the greatest philosophers in history, did not control his birth condition, but dominated his mind and attitude. And you? Will you continue to debate yourself against the inevitable, or direct your strength to what you can really transform? Accepting this truth changes everything. When you stop spending energy on what's out of your reach, it releases space to act where it really makes a difference. Relationships, work, health, in any area, you have power over your decisions. You can regret the challenges, or you can face them with intelligence and strategy. Life owes you nothing, but gives you a chance to choose how to play the game. What will be your next move? The pain happens at the moment, but prolonged suffering is a burden you decide to carry. Imagine that you stumble and fall. Physical pain is inevitable, but mentally reviving tumble for days or weeks is a choice. The human mind has a habit of amplifying problems, such as an endless echo. But does it make sense to suffer more than necessary? Stoicism teaches that pain is real, but suffering is optional. What if you stopped feeding the past and started living the present? This does not mean ignoring emotions or pretending nothing happened. The secret is to recognize what you feel, learn from it, and move on. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." How many times have you lost sleep for something that didn't even happen? Or have you brooded something that is past and can no longer change? This only steals your energy and holds you on an endless cycle. You cannot prevent pain from happening, but you can prevent it from taking over your mind. The solution? Practice the separation between fact and interpretation. Did something happen? Okay, but before sinking into suffering, ask yourself, does it still matter now? Either does this thought help or sabotage me? Free yourself from unnecessary weight. Your mind can be an ally or an executioner, and who decides that is you? Avoiding difficulties does not strengthen anyone. On the contrary, each time you run away from a challenge, it gets a little weaker. Think of a warrior. He is not unbeatable for avoiding battles, but for facing them. Every scam that resists, every healing wound, makes it more prepared. Life works the same way. The difficult times are the forge where your resilience is seasoned. You can try to escape pain, but in doing so, it also escapes the chance to become stronger. The question is simple: either you choose to grow by facing the challenges, or becomes hostage to fear and fragility. Epictet was born slave and, even under extreme conditions, used suffering as a trampoline for its evolution. He could not change his situation, but he could decide how he would deal with her. And you? Are you using your difficulties as an excuse to stop or as fuel to move on? Each obstacle surpassed is a new layer of resistance added to its essence. The secret is not to avoid storms, but learn to navigate them. Accept challenges as part of the way and stop wishing a life without difficulty, because it would only mean a life without growth. The more you support, the more unbreakable it becomes. And believe me, you are stronger than you think. What happens to you is not what defines you, but what you do with it. There are people who turn pain into motivation and others who use it as a justification for giving up. The difference between the two is not in what they lived, but how they reacted. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison and left without bitterness, but with determination. It could have become a broken man, but chose to be a symbol of resistance. You also have this power of choice: use pain to grow, or let yourself consume for it. Does that mean that pain is wrong? Of course. Suffering is part of life, but it cannot be the driver of its decisions. When we guide our actions only for what hurts, we leave fear and frustration to take over the wheel. If a disappointment paralyzes you, if a failure makes you give up, then it is not the situation that has toppled you, but the way you allowed it to affect you. An error can be a learning or a sentence. It depends on what you decide to do next. Change happens when you realize that you don't have to wait for you to feel good to act. You may be tired and continue. It may be frustrated and move on. It may be injured and yet make good decisions. Suffering is passing, but the choices you make while suffering can shape your future. So what will be your next decision? Time follows its course, indifferent to laments and regrets. He doesn't wait for anyone, not to hear complaints, let alone correct errors. You can hold on to the past or fear the future, but none of this changes now. And it is precisely in the present that life happens. While you care about what has been or what it can be, the current moment escapes your fingers. How many opportunities have been wasted because you were too busy looking back? Stoics understood this truth brutally. There is only a moment under their control, and it is called now. The past has already fulfilled its role, and the future is just an idea. Seneca said, "We rush to old age lamenting the past, complaining about the present, and fearing the future." It is an endless cycle for those who do not understand that the only real action is in the present moment. Your power is what you do now, not what you could have done before or what you expect to do later. So stop and ask yourself, what can I do right now to change my reality? It's not tomorrow. It's not when everything is perfect, but now. Life happens in the present, and those who understand this live with more clarity, peace, and purpose. Time does not care about your regrets. You shouldn't. The facts are unchanging, but the way you interpret them can transform everything. Two people can go through the same situation and go out with completely different views. One sees a failure like the end, the other as a lesson. One faces a loss like tragedy, the other as a new beginning. The difference is in the perspective. If you believe your story is already written, you are depriving yourself of the power to rewrite it. Life is not what happens to you, it's the way you choose to see and answer it. This change of vision can transform your reality. Thomas Edison, after failing thousands of times when creating the lamp, said, "I didn't fail. I just discovered 10,000 ways that don't work." He could have given up and defined as a failure, but he chose another narrative. You can do the same. Each difficult event can be seen as a weight or as a step. What was once a trauma can become a force. What seemed like an error can be the greatest lesson in your life. The past cannot be erased, but the meaning you give it can be rewritten. Does that mean you should lie to yourself? No. It means you can choose where to focus your attention. What happened doesn't change, but the story you tell about it. And this story shapes who you become. So what version of your life are you choosing to believe? Holding something that has passed only prolongs suffering. We cling to people, ideas, old versions of ourselves, such as dropping them were synonymous with failure. But the truth is the opposite. The true power is knowing when to release. Detachment does not mean indifference, but freedom. If something has already fulfilled your role in your life, keeping holding it is like carrying an anchor on land. It does not protect you. It just prevents you from moving on. Stoicism teaches that everything is transitory: emotions, moments, people. Marco Aurelio reflected daily on the brevity of life, to remember not to cling to what he cannot control. If something needs to go, let go. This goes for hurts, unrealistic expectations, regrets, and even relationships that no longer make sense. The past cannot be rewritten, but you can choose not to carry it as a burden. Release weight is not to forget, but to understand that life continues. So look around and ask yourself, what am I holding that I should have already released? A mistake that has already been made? An opinion that no longer represents you? A fear that no longer makes sense? The detachment is not about losing, but about gaining lightness. And sometimes, what you need most is not to hold harder, but learn to release. Great changes do not happen at once. They are the result of small actions repeated over time. Many people wage because they want to be absolutely sure before they act. But the truth is that perfection never comes. The ideal moment does not exist. What exists is now. You can spend years waiting for perfect courage, knowledge, or motivation, but none of this matters if you don't take the first step. This goes for any area of life. Want to change career? Start learning something new today. Want to improve your health? Take a step now, even if it's just changing a bad habit for a better. Want to transform your mindset? Start by applying a single lesson of Stoicism right now. The secret is not to plan forever, but to take the next step, however small. As Lao Tzu said, a 1,000-mile journey begins with a single step. So look at your life and ask yourself, what is the slightest action I can take now to get where I want? Stop waiting for the perfect moment. The future is not built in gigantic heels, but in consistent steps. And the next step? This only depends on you. Life does not take light with anyone, but that does not mean that you need to be a victim of the circumstances. Stoicism teaches us that pain can be a master, suffering is optional, and true power is as we react to challenges. If you have gotten here, you already have the tools in your hands to become stronger, more resilient, and more owner of your destination. But reading is not enough. Transformation happens in practice. So what are you going to do with it? Reflect on these lessons and choose one to apply today. Perhaps it is to stop clinging to what has gone through. Focus on the present, or take that first step you have been postponing. The change begins the moment you decide to act. The world continues to spin, with or without you in controlling your own story. The question is, will you take this control or keep letting life lead you? If this content has made sense to you, subscribe to the channel and enable notifications to continue receiving insights that can turn your way of seeing life. The journey to become unbreakable starts now, and only you can decide if it will take the next step.